poked myself in the eye. Whoops. I also have a beautiful scratch from the kitties right here. Good times. Hello internet, around here I go by Cat of Diamonds and welcome to my Fannish Reviews. This is my March wrap-up video. That was difficult to get out. What? So I'm just gonna jump right into it and hopefully my speaking abilities will improve. The first book I finished this month was Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. I rated it 4 out of 5 on Goodreads because it was a little bit difficult to get started. Maas starts off Heir of Fire with different voices, and when we get to Selena's voice, the feel of Selena is just really off for me. The whole beginning of this book just felt really off, and it took me a few times to get into it, but once I got to like chapter 9 and page 100 and something, it was good. I am now excited for the next one, which doesn't come out until later this year, so I really am not going into it too much because it is the third in the series, and if you haven't read the few series, you don't really know what I'm talking about, so moving on. The next book I read this month was Understanding the World, the Atlas of Infographics, and its standalone review is right here. I'm quite proud of it, so if you haven't watched it, I hope you do. After that, I read Golden Sun, which is the second book after Red Rising, and it was so good. Oh, it's so good. I love this series so much. I'm so looking forward to Morningstar. I am just consistently blown away with these two books and the world that Pierce Brown has created. Like, these books are so hard to predict, and the world building is so well thought out and amazing. And Golden Sun was on my list of most anticipated books for this year, and the next book does not come out until 2016, and it is the first book on my 2016 shelf on Goodreads because I just want it. After Golden Sun, I finally finished Dr. Tatiana's Sex Advice to All Creation by Olivia Judson. This is a fiction non-fiction book. Dr. Tatiana is a fake character giving out advice like Dear Amy and relationship advice to creatures of the world, but Olivia Judson did all of the research. In the very back is like where she got all of her information. So it was really a long read. I started this in January and I just finished it mid-month. And it's all split up into different sections, so each section involves like a similar question, and that way it kind of gets redundant and repetitive, hence the reading it in pieces. I did mark some stuff because it was really fun. It's regarding gender benders. The next time anyone wheels out a stereotype and says, she does this and he does that, here's your reply. When you gaze at a couple and wonder, what trait makes him him and her her, beware, for it's easy to blunder and be false in what you aver. Some creatures change sex before tea time, some others find two sexes dull, and that virile male fish has no free time, he's got all his kitties to lull. When it comes to the topic of gender, Mother Nature's been having some fun. Take nothing for granted, remember, you won't find any rules, not a one. And then deviating from the plan of my TBR list, I picked up Hold Me Closer, the Tiny Cooper story by David Levithan, who co-wrote Will Grace and Will Grayson with John Green. I was at the library killing some time between plans and stuff and things, and it was there on the shelf and I got excited, but it was so enjoyable. If you loved Will Grace and Will Grayson, I absolutely recommend the Tiny Cooper story. And if you're a fan of musicals or musical theater, I gotta admit I had my doubts, but once I was a few pages in, I was like, I want to go to the show. I would buy all of the tickets to the show. Hell, I would even be on the crew of producing this show because it was so much fun. And lastly, I finished All That Solid Melts into Air by Darragh McKeon? I originally got this book off Book Depository because it was in a haul video or a beautiful covers video, and it was just so gorgeous. Translucent cover and then the beautiful cover underneath it. And then after looking into it further, I realized it was based on the 1986 Chernobyl disaster in the Ukraine, and this was all during the end of the Iron Curtain. And what made it so interesting to me is that this was a huge deal. It's one of those incidents that happened in a single location that had a global impact, and people who were alive at the time remember viscerally where they were when they... And what makes me so fascinated by the events surrounding Chernobyl and Pripyat was that it happened when I was born. All of this was happening, and I was technically alive for it. That being said, this book was really hard to get into. It is definitely a slow build. On one hand, you have these characters that are your viewpoint into this absolutely real event that happened, while the characters themselves are fiction. And so there's all of this time spent on developing these characters and giving them backstory of events that have shaped them up until the Chernobyl meltdown. But then you have the actual events that happened with the meltdown, and how, you know, with the government and propaganda and the cleanup and just all of the just not good shit that went down. I'm just really proud of myself for reading this book. It's definitely not YA as I normally read, and it was a challenge, and I'm happy that I rose to that challenge and did this for me. All that being said, I did not get to Let's Get Lost or Dark World, and so I will definitely be getting to those in April. I also got The Murder Complex from the library. I want to reread Branded. I read this as one of my first reviews on this channel, and the second book is Hunted, and it's coming out in April, so I want to reread that. So these are the ones that I definitely want to read in April. Knowing my luck, I will probably deviate from this plan. April is my birthday month, so I'm also not going to be that. But I know that I'm way ahead in my Goodreads challenge, so I could probably afford to slow down for a month. And with that, I'm wrapping up this wrap-up video. Leave me comments about anything and everything, and I will respond to them. And my next video will either be a review of some sort or a tag video that I filmed like 3 or 4 weeks ago and have yet to post. So until my next video, whichever it may be, happy reading. I didn't take off my makeup last night, and I added some stuff to my face today, so hopefully I look factionless. That was the intent, to look somewhat factionless.